5 steps for perfecting your workflow. And not so much perfecting, but we tried to word that the best we could. But to make your workflow efficient, 5 things that you should do with almost every picture. Okay, almost every picture you should be utilizing or adjusting 5 things: exposure, white balance, color cast, noise, and using brushes and presets to make that faster, okay, to make that editing faster. I want to make sure that it's clear. We do these webinars because we love to teach people about Lightroom. We love to teach people the beauty of Lightroom. It is our passion, and we want you to be able to utilize your program very efficiently and effectively, so that it's not a trial and a tribulation to you, but rather something that you enjoy. And also we want to teach people who have purchased products at Pretty Presets how to use them. So if you see us using presets that are available at Pretty Presets or brushes, that is one of the reasons we do the webinars, is so that we can help them learn how to use their products, and also expose new Lightroom users to what we have available. So if you're curious why we do that, that is why. And now we'll begin. Okay, I'm going to be using some pictures you've probably seen before, but I went back to them because they're great examples of these 5 things that we're going to focus on tonight: exposure, white balance, color cast, noise, and brushes and presets. And I just realized that my computer's not plugged in, but I've got plenty of battery. Okay, so we'll keep going. It'll keep dimming on me, and I'll keep brightening it up. All right, so what I want to work with first is this. Now, I used this picture before, didn't I? But again, it's a great example of some of these things that we're going to do, and I'm going to do them on lots of different pictures so that you can see those steps over and over again, and hopefully become familiar, and that when you go and do it with your Lightroom, that you'll know what you should be doing. Okay, so the first thing I'll talk about is exposure, and exposure is the overall lightness or darkness of your image, and it's how it's shot in camera, and however if you underexpose a little bit or overexposed, it'll come through and show that way in Lightroom. And usually, no, not usually, sometimes you can tell it by the histogram. All right, the histogram is this thing over here, like this little multicolored mountain right here, mountain range. And you'll have something very much like this, or the exact same thing, in your LCD screen on the back of your camera. And it's the overall like exposure levels of the shot you took. Generally, not always, if the little mountain is hovering towards the left, is saying it's a little underexposed. If it's hovering towards the right, then it's a little overexposed. I think he's popping out in front of me here, and not real sure why, but it's a little distracting. It keeps doing it. So with this one, this histogram over here is kind of hovering towards the right, and it's telling us, you know what, this might be a little overexposed. What it's doing is it's reading a lot of this light. That's why I say usually, not always, because if you have a lot of dark or a lot of light in your image, it's going to read that too. So here we've got a lot of dark, okay? So it's really looking at that, and it's going to shift the histogram over to the right. She is a little she's a little underexposed, not terrible, but she's a little underexposed. Now, there's a few things you can do to change your exposure. A really quick tip, a really quick way to fix your exposure is just to put your mouse right over your histogram, okay? Usually towards the middle of your mountain, okay? Middle of the mountain. And just kind of click and move it over, okay? So do you see how I moved that over? Now I'm going to redo it. I'm just going to click, drag over. I went towards this area before, no, this time. So I just clicked and drag over. I'm going to undo it, Command Z or Control Z. Click, whoops. Click and drag over. Now, do it again. See, can you see this area of, sorry, that thing keeps getting in my way. So if here, you can see the like a light gray band show up as I move over. Those are the different exposure values, I want to say, of your image. So we got blacks, shadows, it's general exposure, highlights, and whites. So we're going to go for this middle part, this exposure, okay? It's usually in the middle somewhere. We're going to click and drag it over. That's what you want to do, click and drag. See how much more she brightened up? I mean, how much she brightened up? And it looks better. I got something going on. It keeps popping in my... And it's very hard, y'all, because it's right in my way. I cannot seem to get it to... GoToWebinar is not cooperating with me tonight. So I was able to quickly adjust the exposure. Now, it gave me a little bit more haze, a little more fog than I'd like, so we can fix that. But that was a really quick way to fix your exposure. Another way, I'm just going to back up here, Command Z or Control Z, like zebra, that takes you a step back. If you've got some little piece of paper you're writing notes, Command Z or Control Z on a PC will take you a step back. We can come down here to exposure. And if we need to brighten it up, we just click and drag up. Now, see our histogram moving? It's doing what we did with the click and drag. I'm trying to be patient with this thing, but it's getting in my way constantly. All right, so I moved the exposure over to plus 0.60. So I did. If I want to, if I need to move it down because it's too bright, if you have your pictures very, very bright, you don't have a whole lot of detail in your image, you need to bring the exposure to the left, and that's going to darken your image, okay, like that. If you have clipping, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so see the red showing up right here? That's telling me that the area is so bright, it's just lost color value. It's just gone. It's overexposed to the point of extreme. And how you see this is by clicking the triangle in the top right corner. Okay, you're going to click on it. If you see that your histogram is climbing this right side, but you don't see any red, then just go to the triangle and click on it. With this, we could help recover some of that by reducing the exposure, but really, these highlights we've blown, we're going to go to the highlights, and we're going to click and drag that down. All right, that's what's going to help you recover those blown highlights, is the highlights slider. So we would do that. Nothing blown here, so I'm just going to increase the exposure a good bit. But now as we did that, I lost a little bit of contrast. So anytime you mess with exposure, you do need to be also looking at the contrast. That's why a lot of times people will write exposure / contrast, because they kind of go hand in hand. As you fix exposure and brighten it up, you may be losing contrast, so you want to fix that. And I know that the word contrast is right below exposure, and that will work to an extent, but what will sometimes work better is this black slider. If we come down to the black slider, we can pull it to the left a little bit, and that will add in some contrast for us without darkening the image too much or making things a little too gritty, that if we really increase the contrast, it might end up doing bad things to, if she's got blemishes or wrinkles, it may not be what we really want for the image. I'm going to do that, and we'll just pull that black slider a little bit. Now, third way you can fix exposure. So I'm going to double click on these to make them go back, is we can come down to Tone Curve. And with Tone Curve, you can also brighten. We can click, we've got this curve. If you're familiar with Photoshop, the curves is very much like this, the curves adjustment. And you can just click on an area and pull upward. Okay, so see we're brightening. I just clicked on the line and drag up. Now, if we want to add a little contrast back, we come down here towards the bottom of the curve and pull down a little bit. We can add a little bit of contrast. So, before and after. So 3 ways to fix exposure: your histogram, clicking and dragging our histogram, the exposure slider, and tone curve. Okay, so let's talk about white balance now. So with white balance, that is the overall color temperature of an image. And this is a really good example. So I'm going to go to this one right here. Come in a little bit, maybe this, yeah, this one. And the overall color temperature of an image. Oh, by the way, the images I'm using today are from Brooke Loeb and 2 from me. The ones you've seen so far are from the talented Brooke Loeb photography. So the color temperature is how cool or warm your image is in general. Okay, in general. But you have temp and tint involved in your white balance. Temperature is from cool to warm, and that's our top one, blue to yellow, and then tint from green to magenta. Now, I want you to look at the numbers. Right now we're seeing our camera settings. So ISO at 200, 85 millimeter, shot at f1.8, and shutter speed was 1/800th of a second. Once I move my mouse over to her skin, then you're going to see some different numbers. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so here we go. R, 71.3, G, 68.7, B, 75.0. That stands for red, green, blue. Generally, so these numbers are a lot different than how they look in Photoshop Elements, but I don't want to get into that too much. I do want to state that the blue value should always be lower than the green value in Photoshop and in Lightroom. Okay, you always want the blue value lower than the green value, regardless of the nationality or skin type. You just do. Yes, some people are warmer complected and some people are cooler complected, but nobody is going to be a gray or blue. And if they are, something's not right with their health. Okay, they're sick. So we want to make her less blue. So our blue is 75, our green is 68. The first way you can try to fix this is with the eyedropper. So you just click on the eyedropper, and we can click in the whites of the eyes. See that? Do you see how the color changed? I'll go back. All right, so I'm going to do it again. Now, a neat thing to see, if I go backwards. Okay, so see our preview, our navigator over here? It's showing us how it is. Now, as we click over, it will give us a preview of what it will look like at that spot. So I'm going to come over here to her hair. So see how this, look at my navigator in the left-hand side of my screen. See how it's like a green-blue? If I clicked right here, or if I clicked on her lips, it's really green. Now on her skin, kind of yellow-green. We get to the whites of the eyes. Now we're getting to a nice, warm image like it should be, because it looks like this is a sunset picture, golden hour picture. So this would be more fitting. All right, and I'm looking right over here in this left-hand side. So I can click. Some helpful things to know about this eyedropper when setting your white balance. You can have it click to auto dismiss down here in this toolbar. If you have your eyedropper active and you're not seeing this toolbar, go up to view, all right, and yours is probably hidden. So you're going to go view, and yours will say show toolbar. So you're going to click to show your toolbar. This is set to auto dismiss, and I generally don't like it to auto dismiss. What that means is that I can keep clicking. I can try one, and I say, no, that's not right, so I'm going to keep clicking. And so I can keep on until I find what I want. Whereas if you have auto dismiss, it's one click, and then you got to go back and click it. Or you can click, I can't remember, it's different for Photoshop. It's W, there you go, it's W. So you can click W on your screen and it'll activate again. Or you just uncheck auto dismiss and it stays with you. Once you're done, you have to click done. Okay. So I like it, but it's a little too warm, and we can see the side by side right here. I like it, but I think we went a little too far. So if I got almost what I wanted, but it's too much of that, I can come over here to the temp and say, okay, it's too warm, so I'm going to click on that slider and move it to the left just a little bit. So we're not quite as warm as we were. I'm going to do that again with this picture right here. So she's too cool too. And, right, if you look over here, the blue is 65, the green is 62. So we're going to get that eyedropper, and I'm going to click around. Usually the whites of the eyes, if there's no whites of the eyes, try silver jewelry, as long as there's no like highlights on it, buttons, something neutral in the background, and just give that a try and see if that'll work. You can also try these settings. So as shot is this, okay? This is as shot. Now we can try cloudy. Cloudy looks nice. Let's see. You'd be surprised, but flash often looks good too. Okay, so it's a little warmer. Still a little too cool though. We do shade. Shade's usually really warm, so you gotta be careful of that. That's daylight, too cool. So I think cloudy or flash would look nice. And let's look at it. I think that looks good, so I might leave it there. Again, you know, the settings right here, so I'm just clicking. Yours might say auto or as shot. So it's white balance, and then there's going to be a word over here, and you click, and you'll see the settings. So it might get you near what you want it to be, and you might say, I like this, but it's a little too much of this, a little too green, or a little too whatever. Use these sliders to adjust that. So I'm going to come, and I'm going to change this. So this is the one that we worked on that was the exposure. So we fixed the exposure. So now I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Oops. Come on. And I'm going to get the whites of the eyes. Okay. My thing likes to do all or nothing here. Come on. Here we go. While it's got the eyedropper active. So I like what we did, and we can see in the history. So there's before the white balance adjustment, and there's the after. Okay, and I clicked on the whites of her eyes. So we have fixed her exposure, contrast, and her white balance. Now if we have any little color cast, I do want to say you want to make sure that you fix exposure. Okay, exposure is very important to fix before you tackle any color cast, because if things are underexposed, those casts will look worse than they really are once you bring the exposure up. So fix the exposure, then worry about any color cast. This picture doesn't have really much. She is a little rosy right here, but this one is a better picture to show because she's definitely got some very pink cheeks, you know, almost like she's too hot. And so I want to get her a little less rosy. So I zoomed in. Okay. There we go. And so see how red it is right there? I'm going to use a brush. And when you're working with color cast, you want to know the color wheel. And how that works is where you have red and cyan, and it's like a teeter-totter. Imagine red on one side of the teeter-totter and cyan on the other. And as red goes up, cyan goes down, and as cyan goes up, red goes down. Same thing for green and magenta. So green is on one side, magenta on the other, and as one goes up, the other goes down, and vice versa. Then we have blue and yellow. As blue goes up, which often blue may not look blue, it may look kind of a rosy reddish. It's weird. It's a cool red. And as blue goes up, yellow goes down, and as yellow goes up, blue goes down. So if you're tackling these color casts, if you have Lightroom 4 and 5, the temp and tint slider can be your friend to be able to fix this. So make sure you've kind of zeroed out. And if you can also go click on it, temp and tint. And so it's a little too cool here. and for me, a little too red. So I want to warm it up. So I've got it set to warm, and I'm just going to start out. And sometimes the color cast, you have to kind of, it's like soup. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and you just kind of have to see how it works for you. So we're kind of, I'm just brushing on so we can know where we're going. See where I brushed, and I might say, you know what? It's warm, but it's still a little pink. But I'm going to brighten up that area just a little bit. Maybe desaturate it just a tad. You can also add a color in. Okay, so I'm going to click a color. And if it's too red, then maybe I need to add some cyan in. So I'm going to come over here, kind of do that. It is a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it can be time consuming to find exactly what is the best combination. Okay? So we definitely made improvements right there on her cheek. And what's nice is that once you have that brush, and you've used it, then you can brush on the other areas. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Okay. And if it's too strong for that other area, then you can tweak it and adjust it. See, it's too bright for right there, so I'm going to back up, and I'm going to click New, and now when I brush, it's really not going to, I might just reduce that down, and we'd have to try with another one. So that's why the color cast brush can be a little time consuming, and a little bit of this and a little bit of that to come up with the right one. So I'm actually going to do straight to like a cyan color right here. Let's brush on right here. A bit. So that's color cast. Think of the opposites. Okay, think of opposites. If you need to fix a blue cast, then you're going to work with yellow, and you're going to decrease that yellow, blue, and increase the yellow, and so on. There was a picture I'd had, and I could not find it. That was a good example, because sometimes presets can create color cast for us, and you need to be able to know how to tackle those. Now I'm going to try and find it at the end to be able to show you that. All right. So I'm going to be showing you all these things to do on your own, and then I'm going to show you brushes and presets to do these same things to save you time. Okay? Because what I just showed you, there are brushes for it to help you with, which is fantastic. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about, and then we're going to get into specifics, and I'm going to do all these steps on a picture very quickly. The next thing I want to talk about is noise. So a lot of times we end up having to shoot at high ISO. There's just no way to get around it. It just has to be done. Well, with the older cameras especially, as you increase your ISO, you're introducing noise. Or if you underexpose and then we fix the exposure in post-processing, you're going to introduce noise. So don't think, well, I'm going to use a low ISO and then I'm going to fix it in post-processing and I won't have noise. Yes, you will. Okay? Because that underexposure, once you fix it, you're going to have that digital graininess. I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about with noise. All right. And make sure okay. So we have some noise right here. You see that, how noisy all that is? And we even have some color noise. At least I did at home. All right, and where there'll be tiny bits of color in your image in the noise area. And how you fix that is with this. All right, there we go. So that's how it was. So you see the color noise? See how it's kind of reddish and green. We got some like magenta and green and purple. See the color noise? So if you have noise that has color, you're going to move the color slider under the noise reduction. And Noise reduction is in the detail panel. On the right-hand side, go to detail. We've got sharpening, and then we have noise reduction. So we can move that over, and then we can also increase the luminance, which is just those midtones usually. I mean, it does get the dark areas also, but it's not going to take care as well of the color noise as color will. So so if you have noise with color, use this color one first, and then the luminance. So we can see how our change was. We come up to the word detail, come over to the left. There's a white and black boxes on top of white on top of black. This is showing that it's active, that the panel is active. If I click on this, now the panel's not active. So there's before us fixing the noise, and there's after. Now the thing you have to be careful of with noise with noise reduction is that if you use it too much, it can make your image look less sharp. Because what it's doing is it's knitting together the pixels that are beside each other, and it's going to try and fill in and knit those together and make it look smooth and not grainy. But as it does that, you may lose detail. So if you end up having to bump up your noise reduction a lot, what you may want to try and look at is the clarity. Come up here to clarity now and increase the clarity. And clarity is an edge definer. So while we kind of smoothed over our edges, the whole image and all the pixels with the noise reduction, now we can go in and find those edges and clarify them a little bit more. Okay. Here's another. This one was with a D90, I think. ISO is 800. You can see the noise from here, can't you? See how noisy it is? So let's go to the, detail. And we're going to increase the noise reduction right there. Now you'll notice that the default for color noise is up to 25, and you want to make sure you do keep that there. It's not going to have the overall noise reduction that can really blur things over. If you feel like it is, you can always reduce it, and it won't hurt anything really. But Lightroom has that as a default. Okay, so here we can increase the noise reduction. The most I've ever gone up to is like 35. And I'll tell you the truth right now, with this one, I'm not seeing a big difference. Lightroom has a really good noise reduction process, but here it is not as noticeable, and I don't know why. Usually it's fantastic. It's very interesting. Something strange too, because I don't have options in my detail and my contrast. Okay, this picture is an anomaly. Oh, I see why. If anybody notices it, my my process is not right. It's set to the Lightroom 3 process. If this happens to you, and this actually I did a screen share with somebody to help her out, she couldn't get any of her brushes to work. She had purchased Lightroom brushes from Presets, couldn't get them to work. And what had happened was, I mean, they were showing up in her custom brushes. They were all there, but they were all zeroed out. Why was that? Well, I noticed that she had exposure recovery fill light blacks. People who have upgraded from Lightroom 3 to 4 or 5 should recognize this. This is Lightroom 3 or 2. So to change that, you're going to go to Settings, Process, and we need Current. Ah, look at that. Now we see some noise reduction going on, don't we? Okay, look at that. Problem solving in live, huh? So now I knew something was wrong when I didn't have options for detail and contrast and all that. So now we can see before and after. before and after. Lightroom does a really good job of noise reduction. If I was concerned about it getting blurry, I would come to clarity and increase my clarity. And now we still have some really nice noise reduction, but we haven't lost the detail in her face. Not that the image was that sharp to start with, I don't think. Okay, this is a long time ago. She's much changed. She's 10 and a half now. I think she was like 7 there. 8. Okay. Now, for the next half hour, we're going to go through the same things we just talked about and show them either with presets or very quickly doing the same steps we did before. Okay? So, I'll come back to this one. I'm going to reset it. If you have it could be the regular workflow or the clean and creative workflow. I just want to show you really quickly. If you've done a webinar with me before, you know what I say to do first, right? I say to try and edit as much as you can with brushes so that you can use presets more easily. So let's try and fix this with brushes. Primarily with brushes. Oops. Okay. So I'm going to click here and I'm just going to do add light. If you're using brushes, you've got to pay attention to feather and flow. Flow and density. Flow and density. If you're using a brush and you don't feel like anything's happening, it could be because your flow is too low or your density is too low. So here, if my density is at 8 and I brush, not much is happening, is it? Just a little bit, right? You might think, gosh, that's not very good. Well, it's because we've told Lightroom only let like 8% of this through. Don't let very much through. If we want more, okay, if we wanted to do more, then we need to increase that density, okay? And now we can brush and it will be a lot more. Now, what if it's too much? What if you'd say, well, that's fine and dandy to have it all, but what if it's always, it's not always, but what if we know that this is going to be too much for this picture? Well, what you can do, I'm going to delete the pen, is decrease the flow. How this is different is that it's cumulative. So I can keep clicking and keep brushing and it'll keep applying it. But with each pass, it really does like 53%. Whereas with density, it will only ever let, so if we have it at 25, it will only ever let 25% through, period. No matter how much we brush. Flow, it's just saying, okay, with each pass, only let half through. That way it's lower, but then we can kind of add it on, kind of like, lip gloss or lipstick, just a little bit at a time and keep adding till we have what we need. Okay. Whenever you use a brush, it's a pen right there. If you hover over the pen or you have Show Selected Mask Overlay, it will be red usually. I changed it to green. And how you can change that color is in your preferences. So if you go to Lightroom Preferences on a Mac or on a PC, it's Edit Preferences, and you can change it there. Okay, so in between brushes, we're going to click New. And the reason I say edit as much as you can with brushes to start with is because when you go to use presets, your brushes will stay put, whereas any changes you made in any of the other panels, basic, tone curve, HSL, split toning, detail, all these other ones, they may change depending on what the preset, how the preset was recorded. But it doesn't overwrite the brushes. So you can change things with the brushes. You can even change white balance. So unless a whole image is too cool for us, we can change the temperature of her skin with a brush. Okay? We can do that. So we've got that. Make sure you click New in between. With this one, I'm just going to do Skin Temp Warm. So I want to warm her skin tone. So this warms her up. If you don't have the brushes and you're like, well, this is a really cool trick, I want to be able to do that too, until I can get the brushes, you can do the temp one, you can just change the temp, and you can come in and warm it up. All right, that was too warm. Okay. Now, I will say it's hard to get exactly what you want with the temp brushes for warming up the face. It is much easier to do the white balance dropper in the basic panel. But for now, we'll do it this way. And I'm going to click New. And let's just say we want to whiten her teeth and eyes, her eyes a little bit. Okay. Anywhere you start a pin, okay, the brushes. Remember, we're, you know, one of our goals with these webinars is to educate people how to use what they have. Okay, we can do this. My flow is down. I'm going to increase the flow. And sometimes as you use it, you might think, well, I like it, but I need a little bit more. And for this, I feel like I need it to be a little brighter, so I'm just going to bump the exposure up a little bit. Looks like she's been swimming. Kind of got bloodshot eyes. If we want to sharpen up her eyes a little bit, we could do eyes, and we'll do brown. She's kind of got hazel eyes, doesn't she? There's some green and some brown in there. I chose brown eyes, the brush. And the last thing I'm going to do with this one is smooth the skin. Oops, not the lips. Okay. I do want to show the mask, and I purposely did that because I want to show you if you hit an area that you didn't mean to, okay, it's all right. It can be fixed. You don't have to start all over. All right, so I hit an eye, and skin smoothing blurs the skin, and we don't want her eyes blurred, do we? So what you do is down here in the darker gray area of the brush panel, we have brush, A, B, and erase. We're going to click on erase. And now I want to erase right here. Okay. So now we can click done. So that's before and after with the brushes only. And what I want to do is take a snapshot. So Command N, and I'm going to do March 2nd, clean brushes. Now you can apply presets. People love to use presets to create special looks and effects. And the problem sometimes they have is that maybe their picture is a little underexposed. Well, if you start to use a preset on a picture that's underexposed, has got bad white balance, it's not going to look great. They design the presets to be applied to images that have good exposure, good white balance, good contrast. So you want to fix those things before you use the presets. But the problem is, if you use them with the basic panel, if you fix those things with the basic panel, then the presets will override it. That's why the brushes work so well in conjunction with presets. So here, we could use something like Fine Art Film has been a big hit, and that's what I'm just going to go through. If you notice, as you scroll through your presets, you can get a preview of what it's going to look like. And it's not going to apply until you click it, okay? I've had somebody put in a ticket because her presets weren't working, but what she wasn't doing was she wasn't clicking. And I know it sounds funny, but for a brand new user, that isn't always obvious. So you do have to click the preset to have it apply. So maybe I want Velveteen, okay? And let's say you really love it. Okay, I love this, but it's a little bit too much contrast for me. So what we might be able to do is pull this contrast down a little bit, maybe, and maybe add a little bit of exposure. There we go. Oh, beautiful. I love it. So now I'll do another one. March 2nd, clean with Velveteen. I'm going to get a ton of questions about snapshots, I'm sure. Okay, so there we have that. So what I want to show you very, very quickly is I'm going to reset this picture. I'm going to do a snapshot. SOC. Okay, so now if I applied velveteen on that picture as it is, okay, that's velveteen on the image without any adjustment brushes, okay? This is, whoops, I'm sorry, I need to adjust the exposure, didn't I? That's what I did, okay. So that is with it adjusted. And then that is where you can tell the difference in the face, can't you? The brushes. So that's why you want to try and edit as much as you can with the brushes to fix any problems. And then you can use presets and you're going to find you're a lot happier because your image is already a clean edit. So you want to give your image a clean edit with the brushes, then I'll try out the presets. So let's do that. You can sync the preset. If you found a preset you really love, you can sync it with other pictures that work in the that were taken in the same setting and lighting, and apply them all at once. But you can't apply brushes, okay? So we can sync. So if I come over here to this one, I can hold down my Shift key and then click to select both of those, and I can click sync. At the bottom of the right-hand side panel, I can click sync. Now, it's showing me that everything's selected, but I don't want everything selected. I don't want the local brushes. Okay, I do want, okay, so it's already unchecked. Good. So do I want everything else? Yes, I do. So now I'm going to synchronize. And there it is. Now, because the other two pictures were not as dark as the other one, we probably don't need as much of an exposure, do we? We still need to go in and work with the brushes on her face. This one looks very nice. So very quickly, we're able to get the same effect on multiple images by using the sync option. Okay, so now I'm going to come to this one. And because this is the same setting as this picture and this picture. Now, I warmed this up with the eyedropper and tweaked the exposure a little bit. And so I want to increase the contrast a little bit. So now I'm going to sync these basic panel. Okay, this is no presets. This is all done by hand. And I'm going to hold down my Shift key and grab the other ones. So it does not always have to be left to right. The one I started with is going to be a little brighter than the other ones, and I'm going to click sync. I want to sync everything. Yep, okay, except for brushes and spot removal and crops. So very quickly, we're able to warm those pictures up. This one needs a little brightening. Oops. This one was not as bright as the other ones. There we go. If we want to use a preset, because the problem with this picture was really, it was a little bright and it was too cool. The presets may still work well. So I'm going to select all of them, right click, go to develop settings and reset all of them at once. Well, it didn't take. Must be able to only do that in the library module. Okay, so I want to edit this picture with the workflow because we talk about a clean edit, clean edit, clean edit, and the workflow presets can really make this a very quick process. So here I need a little contrast, so I'm going to click contrast. I don't really need to brighten, okay, maybe even darken, let's see. Okay, that's better. Recover clipping, we'd already kind of done that, but still I'll click it. Sharpen for females and babies, yeah. Do I want a vignette? I don't know. And then we can go through with some effects, but I'm going to skip because I want to do clean edit and skip through. And if I want to warm her up, tone warm, there we go. And if we need a little extra light, oh, see, that's too much. Okay. So I think that's it. All right. So very, very quickly, we went from that to that with a few clicks. And what it just makes things faster. Presets speed your workflow, okay? And I know I hear some people, especially with Photoshop, with actions, they pride themselves on like, oh, I don't use actions. I do it all by myself. Well, I want to say, aren't you wasting a lot of time? Because I use actions, I use presets. I have got a lot to do. I've got 4 children, I homeschool, I've got a business. I don't have time to sit there and go to every little thing and slide and click and this and move and this. I use presets so I can just click, 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 click to get what I want and I'm done. Okay? So there is no shame in using presets, and I really think that's a smart way to use your time. I'm just saying, that's just from the heart there. Okay. So if we want to set that, we can sync these very quickly. I did that. And we can still highlight and sync and synchronize. Okay. So, what was I going to do next? I've got 48, okay, 12 minutes. Good, 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 good. So let's do this on this picture right here. There's only one of this. And I love everything about this picture except for this pole. I want to remove it, but it does not work well sometimes. The cloning in Lightroom is not perfected just yet. They have gotten better, but this is something I would probably remove in Photoshop Elements or Photoshop. It's the only thing that bothers me about this picture. Okay, so this picture, I mean, really looks really, really cute. At first you might think there's nothing wrong with this picture. It is a little underexposed, and she is too cool. And so we need to kind of fix that. So let's, in the Clean and Create Advanced workflow, that was the preset I just used to create a clean edit. You can do a quick clean, and with one click, we went from there to there. We still may need a little bit more. Maybe we need a little bit of center light, or maybe a little more contrast. We can brighten a little bit more. Okay, I like that. That quick clean has sharpening in it. It has a lot. So I'm just going to click through. Now we could probably do a creative edit if we wanted to. So I could try something like blueberries, maybe a hazy matte. With these, the way it works is you choose one from each of the groupings. So you can choose one of these, one of the 2s, one of the 3s, one of the 4s, one of the 5s, and sometimes you might try one and it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, hit Command Z. Command Z or Control Z. And I want to warm that up. Oh, it's one or the other. I chose Hazy Matte. Okay, so if we need to reduce reds or cast, this helps, but she really didn't have any, so that we didn't need to do that. All right, so we did that. We need to pull the highlights down a little bit. Okay, if you have highlights in a particular area, I didn't talk about this before, you can fix that with your brush. Okay, so come up and get your highlights brush, pull the highlights down, click and drag over it, and you get rid of those highlights. You'll know you have clipping or highlights when it's red in the image. Okay, so with a few clicks, whoops, and you're seeing, why are you seeing that? I don't know why that's showing as before, because that is not before. My Lightroom is acting funny here. That was not the straight of the camera. Okay. There's before. Okay, there's straight of the camera. And there was the clean edit plus a little bit of creative with the clean and creative. So you want to fix your exposure and contrast. You want to fix your white balance. You want to tackle color cast. And sometimes a preset can help you with that. Oh, so with this, all right, this is one we didn't fix, so we'll do this one. This one's similar to the other one, but it's not the same thing. So I just clicked and it warmed her up a good bit, didn't it? Now I'll just brighten her up a little bit. Oops, not highlight, sorry. Exposure. Now her cheeks are still, and I like rosy cheeks except for if I think they're, just because they're too hot, they're overheated. So I'm gonna click on the brushes, and when you purchase, if you purchase custom brushes, they show up in your brush panel, but it might be under some other word might be showing, like exposure or highlights or saturation. You click where that word is showing, and then the brushes will be down here. So we got fix cast red, and I'm going to reduce, whoops, not the feather, flow a little bit. If you don't want to see your mask, remember, you can uncheck it down here. Okay, so very quickly. And if you want to see what your picture looks like without the brushes, you come to the bottom of this panel. All the other panels you go to the top, but this one you go to the bottom. So there's before, and there's after. That's just using the red fixed red cast brush. This is from the Perfect Portrait brush collection. I think that's the name of it. Perfect Portrait. I don't think that's right. The portrait. Laura, don't shoot me. I think it's the Perfect Portrait brush collection, and I don't know what it's called. I just use them, and so I'm pretty sure it's the Perfect Portrait. Thanks. So they've got some different color cast ones, and you just brush them on there. Okay, let's try to think. Okay, so with every picture, you should be looking at exposure. Is it well exposed? Is it too dark? Is it too bright? Is it too cool? All right. Is this picture too dark? It is a little bit. Her face is. She's got this beautiful backlighting. Is it too dark? So let's, we can fix that. We can fix it either by hand over here, each one, or if you get presets. Okay, so we could do where we brighten a good bit. Well, we got some clipping. So recover the clipping. We still have a little bit of clipping. I'm okay with that. And we can turn that off so we don't see it. Now what else do we need? Is she too cool? So you're going to run your mouse over her skin, and it looks like she is because the blue is 77 and the green is 73, and I'll move it around. And everywhere I move, the blue is higher. So we know we need to warm it up. And so I can come down here to a warming. Oh, there we go. We warm it up. So you can use these presets to do that. Now, if you know you want to use creative presets like fine art film or retro rock and roll or spring flare and color, if you're sitting there with me, you can answer. You want to edit with brushes primarily, and then you can use those presets. Whereas if we went there and used them now, they're going to overwrite these settings. Okay, so how that would work is, so like with retro rock and roll, if I do this one right here, I want you to watch what happens here in my panel. Which one did I say I was going to do? Like Aquarius. Well, look at that. It zeroed out that exposure and contrast and everything. So if we go back and we use something else, like, let's see. There we go. See how much it changed it to? Because it's the sliders cannot be in two places at once. It's one or the other. So it's best, if you know you're going to use presets, to edit with brushes. So we would brighten her up with, an add light and make that bigger. If you have, look at that, how much different that is. Click new in between, add warmth, so we can add some warmth to her. Remember, she was too cool. So now you can add presets and it's not going to overwrite those brushes. And very quickly, we went from that to that. There's a lot more we could do with the brushes. You can add detail, darken. whiten the teeth and eyes. Now, really quick, I keep saying really quick. When you're whitening teeth, it's best if you reduce the feather. And let's see if I got some with teeth in here. Now, it's funny because none of these kids were showing their teeth, were they? Not even my own. These two, this one, that's my oldest. He's now 15 and working on getting himself kicked out of the house. No, I'm kidding. I love him, but maybe. And then now she's 11. Those are my first and thirds. Or she's 10. Okay, so but when you're whitening the eyes or brushing or whitening the teeth, then you might want to reduce the feather. And what that means is that, oops, let's get a brush. And let's maybe work on an eye here real quick. If we zoom into her, and it's really with the teeth more so, if you're using a brush, the feather, this means how soft it is, how much it blends into the pixels around it. And if you harden it, then it's a little more defined. So if we maybe add some grit and detail to this, oops, did I just close my brushes? So if I want to add some grit, to this one right here, oops, my flow must be down. It is. Okay. If we do that, okay, you can see it's kind of blending into the pixels around it, isn't it? There's not a real extreme stop and start. Well, if we reduce the feather, okay, and do it now, there's a defined start and stop. And usually with portrait editing, you're going to use a high feather. However, when you're brushing the teeth or whitening the teeth, you may want to reduce the feather, not all the way hard, but down some, because you don't want to hit the gums and have them be kind of grayish, white, hazy. You want to keep those gums nice and fresh and pretty. And so you just want to hit the teeth. And the way to do that is to make the feather smaller. If you're in Photoshop or Photoshop Elements, how that translates is that you make the brush harder. Well, the feather. If a high feather, that means soft. Low feather means hard. Okay. Now, this was all about the portrait workflow. This was not necessarily about your whole workflow of importing your pictures, tagging, making collections, culling, editing and exporting. This was more about what should be done to every picture. Every picture, you should evaluate the exposure and the white balance, any color cast they have. So look under the chins and the cheeks. Look at the noise, fix that, and then using brushes and presets. Brushes to do a clean edit so then that you can use presets to quickly do those things. Okay, my buttons have been hitting this desk and I apologize. All right, so now it's 8 o'clock and it's question time. Okay. All right. Let's see. Lots of questions, but Laura, it looks like Laura's been helping a good number of people. Okay. Will the eyedropper automatically change the white balance? Great question, Sarah. It will only change the white balance when you click it. So if you hover over it, so her question was, will it automatically change the white balance? So here is this picture, and he is a little cool. Okay, this is straight out of the camera. He's a little cool. And I can get the Eyedropper, hit W, and we can see what it's going to be over here, but it's not going to take effect until we click. Okay, until we click. And that's not really what I want. It's a little too much here. And if we get close to where we want, but not quite, probably need to turn that down a little bit. Okay, so that's better. he was sitting in a window, and actually it is quite cool. Window light is shade light. That's better. So the eyedropper will not change the white balance until you actually click somewhere in the image. Okay, you got to actually click. Let's do another one here. Let's reset it. So I'm going to grab the white dropper, and here we'd have to really zoom in to get the whites of her eyes. So I'm going to try and do this not using the whites of her eyes. Maybe I use her dress right here. See that? Or maybe I use this. You can zoom in a little bit. Oops, come on. I use the space bar to move around, but when I have my white dropper, it likes to throw you in and out. The space bar does when you have that. So that's with the whites of the eyes. Let's see. If I want to use some of this right here, it's kind of gray-like. And now let's see how it looks. All right, I used some of this like a tall hay over here. It's not really hay till it's cut, but tall grass, and it did a pretty good job. I did click on the whites of her eyes, and then I backed up, and I used the hay. We live on a farm. I'm sorry, we call it hay because that's what we grow in the fields. Cut it down, the grass, and so it warmed it up a good bit. And I clicked somewhere over here, but it doesn't change it until you click with your mouse. Great question. Okay. How do you back up and undo? Great question. So if I just want to back up one step, Command Z. Z as in zebra on a Mac. On a PC, it's Control Z as in zebra. If you want to reset entirely, at the bottom of your right panel is Reset. I also use my History panel. So you can come here and do your History panel. So another thing you can do is make snapshots, and that's like a moment in time where you can come back to it and start from there, and you can have lots of different versions of your image. So I could have 10 snapshots. I can only export them one at a time, but those are moments in time, and Lightroom remembers it and allows me to access those. Command Z, Control Z to back up. Okay. Why do I do a snapshot? Okay, why do a snapshot? So let's see, here is a great one. I have lots of different snapshots. If you're editing and you aren't real sure what you want to, let's see. Trying to get back. There we go. So this was the point in time that I used, this was the clean edit with just the brushes. And man, I had to do a lot of guessing with my history, didn't I? Was it there? Was it there? Was it there? Well, I could have just gone straight to my snapshots to the clean. Okay, that's it right there. So you, snapshots allow you to go to those moment in time. And here's some other things other snapshots I've taken. Right? Black and white brushes clean edit, bluebird with sea mist. So those are all different things I have taken, I've done, and I take a snapshot. And I can export right from here, and this is what we'll export. Or I can export from here, and this is what it will be. Or this. And what's nice about snapshots, if I make a virtual copy, so if I right-click in the film strip, okay, I right-clicked, create a virtual copy, my virtual copy has all my history, or my snapshots. So now I could say, well, I want it for this one. So now I can export both. I can export a clean edit and a creative, a black and white, a vintage, a matte, a color pop. I can do lots of different ones. And why would you want to do that? Well, sometimes you want to give your client options. What look were you looking for in your home? Some people in their homes, they have more of a vintage faded look, and having a real heavily saturated color picture may not be what they want for their family photo on their wall to go along with the rest of the design in the house. So it just depends. If they love black and whites, well, give them a black and white to look at. Everybody's different, and that's why giving them a few different options can be effective. Okay, great question. I love snapshots. How do you save snapshots? Guess what, Billy? Great news. They're automatic. Lightroom, I'll shut this down. I could not look at this picture again for a year. If I come back to it, my snapshots are right there. History is forever and snapshots are forever unless I delete them. You can delete the snapshot. So what if you have a picture, you're like, okay, I've taken way too many snapshots. Well, let's say for like this one, we can right click on it and choose delete. Okay, so we can get rid of a snapshot, or we can keep adding snapshots, but they're there forever. Lightroom is fantastic in that it saves your history, it saves your snapshots. I knew I'd have lots of snapshots questions. I always do. I could do like a seminar just on snapshots. Okay, Lori, you've got a two-part question. I can't find the first part. All I have is or delete a brush you've just utilized. Where's the first part of your question, Lori? Okay, I see it. How do you delete a pen or a brush? Okay, that was her question. Great question. So if you edit with brushes, and I will tell you, when I edit with brushes, which is all the time, this is what I do. I love brushes. I may end up with like 16 brushes. So all these little white circles are where we started a new brush, where we started brushing on an effect, smoothing the skin, brightening, brown eyes, warming the face, whatever we did. So if I do a new one right now, do new, and let's do something like just something simple like add darkness. So if I darken and I start right here, watch what happens. Click. Do you see that little black circle take effect? So it's black in the middle and white on the outside. That's an active pen. And it will stay that way until I get done with it. Until I click new or done at the bottom. Okay? If I want to click new, so here if I hover, once I come into the picture, all my pins show up and this little circle that's black with white outside, if I click done, they are going to close up. My brush panel will close up. If I know I want to keep doing more brushes, so let's say this one's active, click on it, I can click new, and once I do that, it's now inactive. So when you see a solid white, it's not that it's inactive, it's that it's kind of closed for now. Nothing's going to happen with that. That's where it's kind of anchored. It's kind of like we plopped in like a boat anchor, like, okay, it's here, this is what's right here. And then when we hover over it, if we have, as long as you have some color set there, it's going to show you where you brushed, okay? So we can see what each one is. If you want to get rid of it, just click on it to activate it and hit delete. Now on a PC, don't be alarmed. There's no poof, it just goes away. So don't think, well, I didn't see a poof, so did it really delete? The little effect is just for Macs so far. At least it's not on my PC. If you're not seeing where you can have the mask overlay show up, this is your toolbar. You need to click on View and then Show Toolbar. So right now I have hidden my toolbar. I can't see it. And I get this question a lot, like, in your webinar you did that, but my bar, I don't have that bar. Is something wrong? Should I uninstall and reinstall? No, do not do that. Don't uninstall and reinstall for a missing tool thing, okay? Go to View and Show Toolbar. That's a question we get a lot. So if ever you feel like you see something on somebody's but you're not seeing on yours, please don't uninstall and reinstall. I mean, you can still save your catalog, and you can do that. I have actually uninstalled Lightroom and reinstalled it. It was last year because of some craziness going on. I saved my catalog. I mean, I had it backed up, so I was just able to do it, open it up. It was all fine, but it's just a lot of hassle to do that. So check your view, and see if it's probably that. Okay, this was recorded. This is being recorded, so those who come in late or whatever happened or have to leave, the recording should be available like tomorrow or Tuesday. How do I click sync? How do you sync? So if you've edited a bunch in a series, okay, so let's say we have this picture right here, and I'm just gonna do something here. Let's just see. Let's see. The Clean Edit workflow, the Clean and Creative Advanced, why that one's special is it is layerable. So I'm going to do a quick clean, add a little more contrast, sharpen. Well, I already did the quick clean, so I didn't need to do that. Add a little vignette. But now we can create something unique. So maybe I want to do a vintage warm. Maybe something like green apples. I don't know. Strawberries. Let's see. You can pick one from each one. And then if we want a matte, or if we want just something cool, do a hazy matte. Okay. So if we have something where we like it, okay, and I want to brighten her up a little bit more. Oh, I can do that down here. And let's say I want to add a little haze. There we go. Just something. Just say we want this. This is what we like. Very faded and light and warm and airy. I can hold down my shift key if they're all in a row and click on it. Just click on the last one. So I held down my shift key and clicked on the last one. If the one I edited is this last one, I could still hold my shift key down and click on the first one. If they're not together, so let's say we want these plus this one and this one and this one. I just hold down my command key. On a PC, it would be your control key. And then I click on those other ones. The one that is our anchor, the one is the root, the one that's going to, everything else is going to sync with, is the one that's a little bit whiter than the others, a little bit brighter than the other ones. And then at the bottom of the panel, the editing panels on your right side, you have a sync option right here. So click sync. When that comes up, then you choose what all you want to sync. So if you cropped any of them, you wouldn't want to do it. If you did any spot removal, you wouldn't want to do it. And in brushes, generally you don't want to sync the brushes. And then hit synchronize. Okay. Just one more question because it's 8:15. What is center light? Okay, well, maybe two more questions. Center light just adds light to the center and not to the rest of it. Because sometimes, your subject's right in the middle, sometimes like this picture, and you just want to brighten the middle and not the rest of it, and that's center light. Sandy, put in a ticket. Go to lightroompresets.com and contact and put in a ticket if you have trouble loading. So we can help you out with that. Okay, let's see. What is the best way to know if an image is too warm, too cool, etc.? How should it look? Joni, that is a great question. I want to encourage everybody not to make everybody look all your subjects look exactly alike. Some people are cooler than others. This little girl being redheaded and fair, she's more likely not olive complected. She probably is fair and runs a little cooler by nature. My husband, if you look at my husband and I, he is so much cooler complected than I am. Allow people to have their differences. Don't make everybody look the same. That being said, he still is not blue. Okay, I wish I could show it in Photoshop. It's always in Elements. It's very easy to illustrate that because I can get the color picker and just pick that skin, the color right there on their skin, and you'll see it's like a lavender or a gray blue, and I'm like, see, this is the skin color, and we're not blue. People are not blue, so you can be on the cool side of warm. Like you can be have those blues still be below greens, but not super warm. And then some people who are olive complected, or just depend on what ethnicity they are, they will be even warmer than like my husband. So really kind of use your eye. Does that person look like that? Is she that warm, or is she that fair? Is she that dark? Like I hate to see when people are kind of darker complected and then a photographer brightens them up to be almost somebody else. So be careful. If they're dark complected, let them be dark complected. Not everybody has to be the same. So general rule, nobody's blue. Beyond that, just really use your eyes and make them look true to themselves, and they'll appreciate that. Okay. Um, will all the brushes work with Lightroom? Yes. If they're not working, then you need to look at your process. I was really glad I did that screen share with that lady, because it was a problem I'd never seen before, but I bet it happens to a lot of people. So if people, especially if they've gone from Lightroom 3 and have upgraded to 4 or 5, if you're editing a picture that was already in your catalog before, was like in your Lightroom 3 catalog, sometimes Lightroom, if I click on a picture I've edited in Lightroom 3, it will throw back my process to that. So I have to be careful, because once that happens, my brushes won't work, the presets that I have over here won't work. I have to make sure to go and check and look at that. And it happened to me today. You saw that, like it was this old picture, and it threw me back to Lightroom 3. So just watch that. And other than that, the brushes all work and are fantastic, and they're very workflow friendly. Okay. I wish I could answer all the questions. Oh, there's a bunch I didn't get to here. Oh, gosh, there was a ton. Okay. 805. How do I do a snapshot again? A snapshot, you can, gosh, there were so many. I thought I was getting a bunch, but there's a bunch more at the bottom. All right. So snapshots, you can take a snapshot. So let's just say I do something here. Let's just do something like, this. So let's say I like this, and I'm just going to bump up the exposure a little bit. And maybe this is, this is what I want. And except for that's my brush. Okay, I don't want that. So maybe this is what I want. Okay, you can take a snapshot by clicking the plus sign. That'll do it. Okay, so I can do I think it was Aquarius. I can do Aquarius, or I can do Command N or Control N on a PC. Okay, Control N or Command N on a PC, and N as in Nancy. N as in Nancy, and that'll do the same thing. I love my snapshots. Okay. A few more questions, since there were so many at the bottom I didn't see. A lot of snapshot the one. So, okay, how do I, okay, see that. I think there's like how to make a snapshot asked at least 15 times right here. Okay, how do I export a snapshot? Great question. So how do you export a snapshot? Well, just hit go file and then export. Wherever you leave, if ever I leave out of develop and I go to library, whatever I'm at, so the snapshot is that moment in time. If I've clicked on any one snapshot, that's where I'm telling Lightroom to be. I'm telling Lightroom to be at this moment, February 5th, 2013. Okay, be at that moment, and that's what I want to export. Whereas I could come back and say, okay, I want you to be at March 2nd, 2014 at 8:20 p.m. I mean, basically, that's what it's saying, and then I export from there. So I could export, hit export, or you can export straight from the develop module by file and then export. And I'll tell you the truth, most of the time that's how I export. I edit and I get done. I don't bother going back to the library to export. I just highlight them all. So if I'm done with all the pictures, I just highlight them all with my shift, click on one, hold my shift key down and click on the other, file and export. Okay. So a few more questions. Oops, wrong thing. I meant to do that. Okay. Okay, so what if you use the clean edit workflow and you do the quick clean? Can you use another preset from another series? You can try it. The problem being is that, so let's do quick clean for this picture right here. This one was a good one. Let's reset it. So her question was, what happens if they do a cleaning one from one preset collection and then go and do something from another one? So let's now go to spring color, flare, and haze. So now if we go, so watch here. So this was quick clean. Quick clean did this. Now if I come over here to one of these, one of my favorites is blueberry or bluebird. So if I click on it, See, it changed it. It changed it. Now, it still worked. There's no brushes. Okay. So it still worked for us this time. This picture was fairly well exposed, and it still worked for us, but look how much it changed this. Look how much it changed these, because those sliders cannot be in two places at once. That's why it's best to try and do a clean edit with the brushes first, because those won't be overwritten. They won't be washed away when you use a preset from another one. Okay? Good question, though. Okay, so just a couple more questions. I've got to go home. I drive to my husband's office to do these questions and to do the webinars, and it's a 45-minute drive home. Okay, yes. I don't want to forget. Oh, okay, real quick. Lacey said, do you just export or do you have to export with the preset? Lacey, that's a very good question, and it's very, very important that people do take their time when they're exporting. Her question again was, do you just export or do you export with the preset? So if I want to export this right now, I go to File, Export. You have to look at each one. So which one do we, each panel we need to pay attention to. So maybe I just want to do same folder as original, period. I want to rename it with something like edit at the back. I don't have time to go through all of this. Okay. File settings, image format. I don't want the original. I want a JPEG. I want it to be 100% quality. Pay attention to each of these. Just like I encourage people to take their time when they're importing, take your time when you're exporting. Okay, do I want to resize? And oh, I'm sorry, your question in general was, okay, your question was actually different. So here I'm just going through the export process here. And I would sharpen, format paper, standard, no watermark, okay, and I show in Finder, and I would hit export. She was asking file, export with preset. What that means is that you can quickly export with particular presets. So if I want to export, say, for print, that is a preset that has been saved, and it will utilize all those settings, okay? The problem is it doesn't give you a chance to change things, okay? So you have to be careful and make sure that whatever preset you're using is doing exactly what you want it to do, because there's no in between to check those things. So good question. She was asking, should it be export or export with preset? So these are literally settings that have been saved, and you can like export for your blog, which I think is like 500 or 600 pixels wide, and Facebook, whatever it was at the time. So anyway, good question.